About a year ago, I made a transformation video about how I was really skinny in high school. And I made this transformation where I gained 40 pounds. I started getting all this validation from other people. I had achieved this goal of my dream body. I was in this euphoria phase. Life was good, you know? I was content. But no, I really wasn't. Because while those things are amazing temporarily, there's always another side to it. Essentially, I was getting all my worth from what people around me said, what comments online said, instead of within. I never really got to the root of my issues. And it's crazy. Last summer, I think I was in the peak of my physique, probably. I mean, that's very subjective, but I was probably single digit body fat, literally starving myself, super tan, just trying to look as good as possible. But these things that you're chasing that you think are going to bring you peace are just temporary. And that's exactly what this was. What got me in this rabbit hole to be so obsessed, to be unsatisfied, to feel like I needed to look a certain way to be worthy. And for me, it was relationships. I started to neglect relationships. I started to fear rejection. So I just said, okay, I'm done with that. I'm just going to get jacked and everything's going to be good. But it wasn't. That's the lie I told myself. I think this is a big reason why so many people are jacked online, truthfully, is that they don't know how to communicate well. They're lacking in some area of their life, and they feel like they have to overcompensate in another area of their life to be worthy, when in reality they already are. Chris Williamson has this great quote where he says, "You shouldn't envy what a rich person has, you should feel sorry for them." What actually drove them to get to this level? You don't know the mental warfare, what was inside of their head. And maybe some people achieved great success with very little resistance. That seems unlikely, but I mean, who am I to say that maybe you were just a peaceful person, you stumbled upon success, maybe you worked very hard, you had good supportive parents that pushed you, and you were doing it for the right reasons all along. All power to you. But I don't think that's the case for most people. And it was at this point I realized building more muscle mass isn't going to do anything for me. I was always bulking to get big for this grand cut where I'm going to look awesome, or doing the cut itself, trying to get shredded with stomach veins, and then, I'll be worthy and all this. But I never really addressed the root issue. Again, these are temporary things. They're things that are distracting you from what's really holding you back. That's why for the past 6 months of my life, I haven't been doing anything. I keep getting asked, are you cutting, bulking? I'm like, I'm just maintaining. Like, I'm maintaining a 13, 14% body fat, which I feel great at. Energy is great. I'm eating whatever I want, but I'm eating good food. I mean, I'm eating whole foods primarily, mostly meat and fruit diet, and I feel great on it. I'm still training hard. I have good workouts, but I'm not trying to get shredded. Getting shredded as a natural is horrible. I've talked about it on this channel before. Maybe I'll do it again at some point, but probably not for a little while. And then I also don't feel like I need to go on this crazy bulk. I don't need to get bigger. Getting bigger is not gonna solve my issues. What's actually solved them has been prioritizing, 1, relationships, 2, spirituality. I'll kind of explain how I've used these two things to be much more level. It felt like I was always on this roller coaster up and down before, and now it's much more level. So for the relationship side, going out more, making more of an effort to get with people. I still have to be mindful with this. I still can just be alone for weeks and just bury myself in work. I have 2 jobs right now. I'm doing content additionally. I can just bury myself in work, but I still need this connection with other people, even if I don't always realize it. So I'm really making an effort for this. A few months ago, I went to Sweden and Denmark with some of my closest friends. I had this great opportunity, and this is something I never would have done before. I would have made an excuse not to go, like, oh, I'm gonna, focus on my work. I have this spring break, and I'm just gonna grind content and get, great training sessions. And this was kind of the initial resistance that was in my head. But when I thought a little bit deeper about it, I'm like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity where I can be with the boys and just enjoying myself. And it's kind of hard to put this into words. I don't know that there's like a scientific explanation for this, but just humans are not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be isolated for long periods of time. I don't care if you're introvert, extrovert. That trip I had no worries for. It was one of the best weeks of my life. I was just with people around me. I wasn't thinking about my goals. I wasn't thinking about content. I wasn't thinking about my body, nothing like that. It was literally just having a great time with the people around me, making memories that were going to last me a lifetime. And this trip really just opened my eyes up. Wow, I have to do this more. This relationship thing is cool. You know, this is this is better than any pump where I'm, single digit body fat and I have all these veins and I'm looking at myself in the mirror. This is something that's way more fulfilling, and I've just been neglecting it, taking the hard route essentially to be peaceful or gain happiness. So now I'm constantly trying to remind myself, reach out to people, make plans. The next thing that helped me out so much in my lowest time was having a relationship with Jesus. And I know a lot of people watching this aren't religious, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to be. But for me personally, when I was in my lowest, it felt like Jesus was the only one that was there. He was the only one that truly knew what I was going through. And it was this slow kind of drip feed. I always would say I was a Christian, but I never had a relationship with Jesus. I could never really defend the Bible. If someone asked me a question, I would just kind of freeze up and I wouldn't really be able to defend it. And I didn't have like true belief. But as I started to read, I just realized there's a lot of wisdom to this book. And this book has a lot of answers to my problems that I could not get from self-improvement. I was deep in the self-improvement arc with like Hamza and Jack Piggott, all these guys, self-improvement. And what always happened with self-improvement was I would be going super hard for like 2 weeks. I'd feel great. And then I would just crash. I would make one mistake and it would just, oh, it would just set me back. It's almost like what I talk about on this channel with the crash diets, right? You crash diet and then maybe you have a cookie or something and then you binge eat and you lose all your progress. That's kind of what self-improvement felt like for me. But the Bible talks about how you are already worthy, which is something that I didn't believe for the first 18 years of my life. I never thought I was worthy. I thought I had to work to be worthy. But God says you are worthy. And this is something that I constantly remind myself. If I'm feeling low, I have these negative thoughts and emotions, which still come all the time. I remind myself that I am worthy. And going back to the relationships, it's actually a very biblical thing to have them and to put them at the forefront of everything. It says in the Bible, man is not meant to be alone. A prime example of this, the creation of the universe, when Eve is literally pulled from Adam's rib. But if you're already content with your life, I'm not going to tell you that you need to find God or you're going to hell, all this. I'm not going to say that. But if you don't feel great about your life, if you are feeling down, you feel okay, maybe you feel okay, but you kind of have that thing that's missing, I would just encourage you to give Jesus a try. If it's not reading the Bible, just praying out to him, at least giving him an opportunity, because that's all it took for me. It wasn't this switch that just flipped inside of me where I was skeptical and then I just believed. I was reading my Bible every day. It was this slow process. I remember it was kind of drip fed to me. At first I was hardcore against it. I would kind of mock my mom for reading it, reading her devotional in the morning or whatever. I'd make jokes about it, you really think that's doing something? Or if she prayed, I'm like, you really think that? Really? Are you crazy? But then I slowly kind of started to experiment with it, and I kind of saw how my life changed and how I become a more peaceful person, not identifying with every single emotion I have, and not living this roller coaster. And I kind of thought that, maybe there's something to this. I started to read a little bit more. The book of Proverbs, perfect for me, because that one just talks about hard work and how basically you're not supposed to be lazy. It's actually very unbiblical to be lazy. And I'm like, wait, I can get behind this because I'm someone that loves to work hard. I derive a lot of fulfillment from that. So this kind of already goes with some of the values I have. So if you are pushing for a goal really hard, you're feeling neglected a little bit, I would just encourage you to look into it a little bit. Look into what's driven you here. Why are you pursuing this goal? Is it for good reasons? And be honest with yourself. I got to a point where I was so miserable where I had to be honest with myself. I just had to look in the mirror and say, why I'm doing this for validation, to be worthy in the eyes of the world, essentially. So going forward, you guys can expect the same old, health and wellness, fitness content. This isn't really the direction I plan on taking this channel. I'm happy to answer any questions. Drop them in the comments, DM me on Instagram, whatever. But I plan on still doing the more fitness-based content. This is just something I woke up with. I felt really compelled to talk about. I don't really get too personal on this channel that often. It's usually pretty surface level fitness stuff. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper into kind of my journey, why I'm not documenting a bulk or a cut, and maybe I'll do that at some point, but kind of just where I'm at. Fitness hasn't been the number one in my life anymore, and it never will be again, probably. It'll always be important. I'll never stop working out, but it's not my God. It's not something I'm worshiping. I don't need to be single digit body fat to be content or getting all this validation. But if there's one thing that you take away from this video, if you aren't happy pursuing a goal, I promise you, you won't be happy when you reach it. Bye, guys.